The topic discussion is PHP classes and objects, object oriented overview and classes and objects in PHP we are going to see. PHP, it is a hypertext preprocessor, and this is a very interesting scripting language. And comparing to another any other languages, it is really a very interesting one. And here in this PHP, we can create most dynamically generated web pages very quickly and easily, and it is also used to create some database driven sites also. And by working in this PHP, it is a wonderful thing, and it is a full-fledged concept, and with many of the object-oriented concept which ever included over here. And in this PHP, what is actually happening? So all the codes, whatever the codes we are coding in PHP will be embedded into the HTML, because it is a HTML based embedded scripting language. What are the we are coding which will be inserting into the HTML, and these HTML codes which will be read or passed by the server, and afterwards after reading from the server, it will processed, and those things the user can't see those PHP files, because all the things which is happening in a secured way. So secure information which is included in this PHP. So many of the syntactic construct which is very popularized in these languages like Java and C++, and this PHP borrows some more features from other languages too, like C, Java, and Perl, etc. So because this can give a dynamically generated web pages very quickly and easily. So earlier versions of PHP do not support all these object-oriented features. So PHP versions after 5.0 can do all the advanced features. And terminology, talk about this terminology, it allows the developer to think about an item with particular properties, also called attributes or data members. And the structure of these objects is defined by class. See, we need to understand the class concept. So classes in PHP is a programming data definition, and it can create a new instance of objects actually, and which includes, in this class includes local functions as well as the local data. And then when we talking about these objects, the collection of it is a new instance of, we can say. And in classes we have some collection of objects which is included in the class. For example, when if we have some example like universe is a class, and which contain the attributes called so many planets, and the stars and all those things. We can outline those properties and methods like a blueprint. And each variable created from a class is called object, or we can say it as instance. And once object is created, then member functions can be accessed, the object data. And then each object maintains its own set of variables and behaves independently from once class get created. And the relationship between the classes and objects, the class name called book, it defines properties like a title, author, and number of pages. And objects means it's an instance of the book class or any other class also. And each instance has its own title, author, number of pages, and property values. And UML. So before going to this, we need to understand some basic concepts of object-oriented concept we need to know. So when we already saw that classes and objects, then we'll move to member variables. These are the variables which is defined inside the class, and it is invisible to the outside of the class. And through this the member variables only it can access the elements, it can access the data. And member this is also this is also defined inside the class. And once object is created, it can access those object data. And when we're talking about the UML, this is a unified modeling language. The standard diagram notation for object oriented design is UML, and this is in this we have class diagrams and object diagrams. By using this UML, we can make relationship between the class diagrams and object diagrams. in particular way, this is very useful to us when describing the properties, methods, and relationship between the classes and objects. For example, if you want to consider what is the relationship between the user and computer, then we can easily make this UML language. So for a complete definition of the syntax, you can go for object modeling. In this UML class diagram, every artist has first name, last name, birth date, birth city, and death date. And using these objects, we can encapsulate those properties together in a class definition for an artist. This is the UML class diagram. We can see the relationship between the class and objects, how it accessing those properties, and the operators which is plus is called indicates public, and we have a property name called first name, last name, birth date, and all those things. And the data type which we are using is called string date, and here in the class definition. And when we see these objects, we have a collection of information which is based on this class. The object name, the variable name, we can say for the class name. And we can mention the first name, we are giving some data, Tableau, and last name, and what is the birth date, all those things we can mention here. So data values for each property in the object is called variable. And server and desktop objects. While we can load an object into memory in this desktop software and makes use of it for several user interactions. A PHP object is loaded into memory only for the life of HTTP request. We must use classes differently than in the desktop world, since the object must be recreated and loaded into memory. Unlike this desktop, there are potentially many thousands of users making requests at once. So not only are objects destroyed upon responding to each request, but memory must be shared between many simultaneous requests, each of which may load objects into memory or each request that requires it. So this is the basic understanding of the server and desktop objects. So we have a desktop application, and here we have a browser application. Once an information will be sent to the memory, and it can be a request to the server, and the server is send back sending those responses to the browser, and then along with the requested content. And objects and classes in PHP. So define the class. So class is defined like the PHP syntax for defining a class is the class keyword followed by the class name. The same thing as the basic concept of OOPS. We are using the class as keyword and artist as the class name, and we are using for those objects, for the class name objects. The class name is called artist, and for that artist we are giving a first name, last name, birth date, birth city, and date. This is a simple artist class. And initializing the objects. Defining a class is not the same as using it. To make use of class, one must initialize objects from its definition using a new keyword. If you create a new keyword for your existing one, we can initialize as like this. And properties, or we can say it as methods. Once your object get created, you can access and modify the properties of each one separately using the variable name and an arrow. So constructor. So constructors, this is a specially defined function, and which is automatically called when once an object is get created. So to initialize an object is a basic concept of this constructor. It specifies the parameters during initialization, and the properties within a class at the right way. In PHP, constructors are defined as functions. As you can see, all methods use the function keyword like underscore construct as the name as construct. And notice this construct has each parameter. This will be assigned to an internal class variable using this syntax. You must always use this syntax to reference properties and methods associated with the particular object of a class. And methods. Methods are like function, except they are associated with a class. They define a task. Each object of a class can be useful since they associate behavior with the objects. So the new name we can applicable to the $. So this is actually we are giving a new value for the existing object. And visibility, or we can say accessibility. In this we have three categories: one is public and private and protected.